Hi guys, so I'm here in Harold's Cross in Dublin at Mount Argus church here in Dublin. So I'm here in the cemetery that adjoins the Mount Argus church, and right over here is the actual grave where Charles Houben was laid to rest, and his body was exhumed in 1937 and brought inside to the church area, which I'll be showing you as we go. So these are the graves here, guys, at Mount Argus. There's priests buried here, and it's in here where Father Charles Houben was laid to rest back in the 1800s, and his body was moved from the cemetery here inside that church. So there's a shrine in there for Saint Charles. So I'll take you over now and we'll see the original grave where St. Charles was laid to rest. So here we have the original grave, and somebody has left a lovely Christmas wreath on it here for St. Charles. So it says, Reverend Father Charles Houben died the 5th of January 1893, aged 71 years old. Now, as I was saying, this was the original resting place here of Father Charles. And as far as I know, the body of St. Charles was exhumed here in 1938, I think, and brought inside. Now there is a coffin, and I'm not sure if it's in the church here, but hopefully I will add that to the video. The coffin is the original coffin where Father Charles was laid to rest in and was brought. I'm not sure if it's in this church or not, but we will go inside and look. So that's the original place where Father Charles Houben, now Saint Charles, he was beatified in Rome by Pope Benedict.
Sanctus esse decernimus et definimus, ac sanctorum catalogo adscribimus.
And my own authority, having reflected for some considerable time, having furthermore on a number of occasions invoked divine assistance and heard the viewpoint of my brother bishops, I declare and define as saints the blesseds George Preka, Simon of Lipnitza, Charles of St. Andrew Houben, and Marie Eugénie de Jésus Milleret, and I inscribe them in the roll of saints.
And healed a lot of people back in the day, moved from Holland to England, and from England over here to Ireland, and helped a lot of people here in Ireland and healed the sick. St. Charles of Mount Argus was born at Munster Geeling in the Netherlands, but like St. Patrick before him, he heard the voice of the Irish. In his case, this happened in the industrial towns of England, where he ministered to the victims of poverty who had fled starvation.
With his gaze fixed on Jesus, our crucified love, Holy Father, Pope Francis has granted the grace of a Jubilee year at Mount Argus to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of St. Charles of Mount Argus. May the door of God's grace and mercy open to us, and may we come to know the joy of those who have been touched by God's pardon and peace.
On the 9th of July 1857, Charles arrived in Dublin to be a member of the Passionist community at Mount Argus. He spent more than 35 years there, celebrating Mass, hearing confessions, and doing what he is most remembered for, ministering to the sick and the needy. Those who knew him recalled his kindness, his patience, and above all, his availability. He was entirely at the disposal of the sick and poor and dying, always ready, as soon as he was asked, to leave whatever he was doing and go and pray with them. Charles's compassion for the needy seemed to be without limit. All that interested him was that they were in trouble and needed his help, which he gave most readily and effectively. At 19 years old, Charles was enrolled for military service from 1840 to 1845, but only saw active service for 3 months. With his military service completed in 1845, Andrew joined the Passionists in Belgium. He was ordained on the 21st of December 1850 in Tournai. His father died in August of that year, and none of the family could make his ordination. Father Charles never saw Holland again. In 1852 he was sent to England, where he first came in contact with the Irish who were emigrating in the wake of the famine. He was transferred to Ireland and on the 9th of July 1857 arrived in the newly founded monastery of Mount Argus. Dublin had a population of less than 250,000 people, many of whom were British soldiers. Charles was not a good preacher. He never really mastered the language, but he excelled in the confessional and in comforting the sick. He was fond of the Irish people. He called them "my people." He soon became very popular not only in Dublin but all over Ireland as he collected money to pay for the new monastery of Mount Argus. It was his gift of healing the sick which is most clearly remembered. As many as 300 people a day came to be blessed by him. Father Sebastian Keens told of a boy of 12 years old who lost the use of his leg and was brought to him. With no delay he called Father Charles, and shortly afterwards found the boy walking up and down in front of the house completely cured. His fame spread and trouble came. Some doctors claimed falsely that he discouraged people from going to the doctor. Others took holy water blessed by Father Charles and began to sell it throughout Ireland. Father Charles was transferred to England in 1866 and remained there for 8 years. He returned to Ireland in 1874 and remained for the rest of his life. During the last years of his life he had many trials. His family in Holland were dying. Old injuries returned to plague him. Towards the end of 1892, it was obvious that the life of Father Charles was coming to an end. He said his last Mass on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Word of his illness spread throughout the city. Crowds gathered to inquire about him. At 5:30 a.m. on the 5th of January 1893, Father Charles passed away. His body was brought to the church and lay in state for 5 days. Despite heavy snow, thousands filed past his coffin, with the police keeping order. His funeral was bigger than Charles Stuart Parnell's 2 years previous. His remains were laid to rest in the cemetery beside the church. His grave became a place of pilgrimage where people came daily. When in 1949 his remains were moved inside the church, the shrine became a place of prayer. Father Charles was beatified by Pope John Paul II in 1988 after the cure of a Dutch lady. Mrs. Verhagen was approved as a miracle attributed to his intercession. The miraculous cure of Mr. Dolph Dormans, also from Holland, paved the way for his canonization. This was a wonderful and historic occasion, not just for the Passionists and Mount Argus, but for the whole of Ireland and the world. Charles was born John Andrew Houben on the 11th of December 1821 in the village of Munster Geelin. He was fourth of 11 children born to Peter and Johanna Huben. The family background was simple and Catholic, with prayers morning and evening and family rosary. They worked in a flour mill owned by their uncle. His childhood was nothing exceptional. He was shy, quiet, pious, friendly, and always bright and cheerful in the family. He found study difficult, but walked the 2 miles into secondary school in Sittard for 10 years. He wanted to be a priest and served Mass and visit the church every day. On returning home, he worked in the mill by day and continued to study. Troubles came with the death of his uncle, and then in 1844 his mother died aged 52 years old. The Passionist habit was taken from the coffin of St. Charles at the second exhumation in 1988. The habit had been placed around his remains in 1937. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all for watching this remarkable video of St. Charles of Mount Argus, and it's very fitting, this museum here in Mount Argus Church with all the relics from the saint. If you enjoyed the video, guys, please give it a thumbs up, like and share, and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you all on the next one. Take care and God bless.